Have you ever just stopped and thought, this whole global financial system, it feels incredibly complicated, maybe even, I don't know, like it's teetering on the edge.
It's a feeling a lot of people share, that sense of unpayable debts piling up, a kind of global precariousness.
Exactly. And we came across this really compelling vintage audio recording from Manly P. Hall, a visionary thinker, who basically said just that. He argued way back then that our economic model cannot last to the beginning of the next century.
It's a pretty stark warning. And it resonates today, doesn't it? That feeling of global financial systems being somehow unsustainable.
It really does. What's fascinating, though, isn't just his critique, it's his absolutely radical proposal for fixing it.
Right. He doesn't just diagnose the illness, he prescribes this, well, pretty audacious cure based on looking way back at history and then projecting forward.
So that's what we're diving into today. We're going to unpack Hall's take on the history of money, get into his pretty sharp critique of where we are now, and then explore this revolutionary idea of his, a world currency and a world bank.
And this isn't just dry economics. He saw it as fundamental to uh, global integrity, humanity's future, really.
Absolutely. Our mission here is to dig into those core ideas for you, our listener, see what makes sense, what challenges us, and pull out those sort of nuggets of knowledge about how we think about money.
It's quite a journey, from ancient barter systems right up to a potential global financial reset.
It really is. Hall starts by saying we've kind of lost the plot. He believed that way back, money was not a commodity but a convenience. What exactly did he mean by that? How is it different?
Well, the key difference is in the purpose, right?
Okay.
Originally, money was just a tool to make swapping things easier. Imagine trying to trade 4 sheep for exactly 1 camel directly. It's awkward.
Right.
So societies got bigger. Carrying sheep around wasn't practical. Things like paper receipts or markings on clay tablets, they just represented the goods. They were a stand-in, a convenience, not the source of value itself.
And he gives some amazing historical examples, like ancient China using deerskin money, where the value was literally tied to how many deer were in the emperor's bark.
Yeah. Or think about early Virginia. Tobacco wasn't just something you bought with money. Tobacco was the money, the main way they exchanged value.
Wow.
And you see it elsewhere, too. Cowrie shells in the South Pacific were like their prime assets. Salt in parts of Europe and Africa. That's actually where our word salary comes from.
No way, really. Salary from salt.
Yeah, a wage paid in salt.
Yeah.
And even salvation has links, the saving power of salt. They even used salt blocks as major gifts in Abyssinia.
That's incredible.
The common thread, though, is that these forms of money were tied to something tangible, something real or naturally scarce, not just abstract numbers or promises.
Okay, so that link to tangible value, that seems to be the key thing we lost, according to Hall. He pivots pretty hard to our current situation, calling it a dilemma that's just getting worse all the time, leading him to that bombshell statement. The world is, theoretically speaking, bankrupt because the debts are simply unpayable. But how can we be bankrupt when there's so much apparent wealth flying around?
Well, this is where his thinking gets really interesting and counterintuitive. He argues that money today is debt. That's the core of the jam we're in.
Money is debt. How does that work?
Basically, instead of money representing existing goods or production, it largely represents future obligations, promises to pay. And he points out how this creates instability, like strong currencies dominating weaker ones, controlling trade, causing unrest. We've completely forgotten, he says, that money is not a commodity. Money is never the prime asset.
And the real villain in his story seems to be this idea of the making of money from money. Interest, essentially. He says it gradually eats up the principal.
Exactly. That's the mechanism he believes makes debts ultimately unpayable. The interest keeps growing, demanding more money than was originally put in circulation so the system can theoretically never clear itself. It's designed to concentrate wealth and create perpetual obligation.
So paradoxically, he concludes that this global bankruptcy isn't caused by poverty, but by wealth itself.
Yes, or rather, by the mismanagement of wealth. He sees it as humanity acting selfishly, trying to exploit nature's collective system, which he argues operates for the good of everything for individual gain. We're wasting resources, destroying the foundation, and pushing the real cost onto future generations.
Okay, that's a pretty grim diagnosis. But Hall didn't just leave it there, did he? He proposed this huge, radical solution.
He did. His first answer, as he puts it, is a world currency. He imagines a dollar that is a dollar everywhere from the Congo to the highest peaks of our economic system. One single universal unit of exchange.
A truly global dollar.
Mhm.
But how does just having one currency fix the underlying problems of debt and interest he talked about?
Because the currency itself is tied to a completely different foundation. This is a revolutionary part. Humanity is the prime asset in his own banking system.
Humanity is the asset, not gold, not oil, not land.
Exactly. He says, it is not what he has, but what he is. The 6 billion people on Earth, their potential, their integrity, their productivity, that's the real wealth, the prime asset of the world. It flips the whole concept of value on its head.
Wow. Okay, my head's spinning a bit. So if people are the asset, how does this World Bank actually work? What does it do?
Think of it as the custodian of this prime asset human potential. It manages the collective integrity and the profit probabilities of the whole human race.
Profit probability.
Yeah, the potential for positive outcomes, for progress. And importantly, he says, existing banks, the little banks all over the world, they wouldn't necessarily disappear. They'd just become branches of this overarching World Bank system.
So like local branches handling day-to-day stuff, but all part of one global system.
Precisely. The goal is a pound the world around. No more competing currencies, no more exchange rate speculation. Just one total unified supply of value reflecting that human asset base. Imagine how that simplifies global trade and cooperation.
It sounds, well, incredibly idealistic. Given how much national politics and power struggles dominate finance now, how could such a bank possibly stay neutral? How would it avoid being manipulated?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Or maybe the 6 billion person question. Hall was very clear on this. Two crucial principles. First, the World Bank neither loans nor borrows.
It doesn't loan or borrow. How does money move then?
It facilitates the flow of value based on need and productive purpose. But it doesn't create debt through lending in the traditional sense. This makes it fundamentally immune to the kind of manipulation that comes with debt creation and interest.
Okay.
And second, and this is vital, it should not be under the political control of any nation. It has to be a truly neutral agent, free from political compromise. He even suggested back then that modern computers could track everything transparently, why money is needed, what it's used for, when value is returned. Even private use is okay, but you declare your purpose and how you'll return the value to the system.
Transparency and neutrality. Okay. But then he hits us with maybe the most radical part, no interest or without usury. He claims 100% of what's taken out eventually goes back in. How on earth does that work? Where's the incentive? How does the bank sustain itself?
It's a mind better, for sure. He uses this great example. Say you borrow $1,000, well, not borrow, but draw $1,000 from the World Bank system for a weekend in Vegas.
Okay, relatable example for some.
Right, so you spend it on the hotel, food, shows, whatever. That money doesn't vanish. It goes to the hotel owner, the workers, the suppliers. They then spend it. It keeps circulating through the economy. And eventually, through all those transactions, taxes, payments, it finds its way back into the central World Bank system. So Hall argues, at the end of any given length of time, theoretically, the World Bank would have exactly the same capital. The money just facilitates activity. It doesn't need to grow via interest.
So it's like a giant closed-loop water cycle for money. It enables life and activity, but the total amount remains constant, just redistributed.
That's a perfect analogy he actually uses later.
Yes.
And he sees this as a kind of built-in censorship against pure waste or extravagance, because every bill that we pay for our extravagance goes back to the same bank. It forces a focus on productive use because there's no profit in just extracting interest.
It's really about conservation of value, not accumulation through debt, a totally different mindset.
Indeed. Complete conservation.
Yeah.
Nothing gets permanently siphoned off by private interest through usury. The principle, the core value based on humanity, is never eaten up. No mortgages in the traditional sense, no crippling debt cycles.
Okay, let's imagine this actually happened. It's a huge if. But what did Hall see as the big picture impacts? He sounds really optimistic, starting with ending poverty.
Yeah, he saw poverty not as inevitable, but as fundamentally unbalanced. Some people working themselves to the bone for almost nothing, while others make vast sums doing very little of tangible value.
Right.
With global wealth properly managed under this unified interest-free system, he argued there's absolutely no reason the gross product of the earth should not sustain mankind with dignity. By getting rid of debt structures like mortgages and crippling interest, humanity becomes truly self-supporting.
And he took that even further, didn't he? Saying we wouldn't need things like old age pensions or social security or insurance. How could that possibly work?
His logic, bold as it is, flows directly from the humanity as prime asset idea. If the entire system is backed by the collective potential and integrity of 6 billion people, then each individual is backed by the rest of 6 billion people. Your security comes from being part of the whole, not from a separate insurance policy you have to pay into.
That's a massive shift in thinking about security in society.
Huge. He even suggested that properly controlling wealth this way could be the greatest moralizing agent ever. If there's no profit in cheating the system, if basic needs are met, the incentives for greed, corruption, and a lot of crime would just evaporate.
Less reason for vice.
Exactly. He calls the World Bank potentially the final capitalist, but capitalist in the sense of administering the capital, the human capital for the common good.
Like a global utility.
Kind of, yeah. He uses the postal system as an example of global cooperation that mostly works. But his best analogy, as you said, is the water cycle.
Tell us more about that water cycle analogy. I thought that was really insightful.
It is elegant, isn't it? Water is just there. It's continuous, essential for everyone. It falls, it flows, it evaporates, it falls again. There isn't more or less water. It's just distributed according to natural laws available to all. He saw that as the ideal model for finance, a system that serves everyone, self-regulating, always returning, not owned or hoarded.
A natural system versus our very unnatural current one makes you think.
And key to making any of this work, he stressed, is education, especially for the 21st century.
Right.
We need to teach kids that poverty is not necessarily our heritage.
And that cooperation beats competition.
Yes, that cooperation is more important than competition, and prioritizing the common good over just personal gain. He believed progress is the only profit that is real. True wealth comes from sharing and building together, not grabbing.
He even references Thomas More's Utopia, right, where there was no money at all.
Exactly. In Utopia, a person's word was their bond, absolute. And gold. They used it for a very attractive cover for plumbing and chamber pots, basically things of low esteem.
To show how little value it had intrinsically.
Precisely. His point was that human integrity is ultimately more secure than gold. If you don't have integrity, even gold can be stolen or manipulated. True security comes from trust and collective well-being.
It's a powerful argument against pure materialism.
It really is. He felt our obsession with stuff and endless competition blinds us to where real security lies in cooperation, dignity, and shared effort.
So the ultimate vision Hall paints, it's a world without fear.
Pretty much. A world where individuals fundamentally cannot go broke because their basic needs are secured by the whole system.
Yeah.
Homes aren't foreclosed. New inventions create progress for all, not mass unemployment for some.
And what about conflict? War?
Well, think about it. If every nation is financed, is part of the same integrated global system managed by one neutral one bank, who would we fight and why? The economic drivers for war would largely disappear.
No need for huge military budgets.
Right. He believed the big problems, poverty, crime, sickness, even the fear of death tied to insecurity, would diminish massively. Humanity could finally focus its energy on peace, art, music, religion, philosophy, all the beauties of nature. Tending the garden, as he put it.
Wow. It's a staggering vision. Manly P. Hall really threw down the gauntlet, challenging everything about our current financial world. He was utterly convinced the way we do things now cannot succeed and just lead from one tyranny to another without fundamental change.
A powerful message, then and now.
Absolutely. And it leaves us with a pretty provocative thought he touched on. He suggested nature itself might eventually force us to change, but that the correction may hurt a little. So for you listening, what kind of collective hurt might actually push humanity towards embracing something so radical, so based on integrity? And looking around today, is our current path maybe bringing that moment of hurt a bit closer?